All right, everybody, welcome back. It's always good to be with you, and I like to dig out some new info if I can, to bring some new stuff for you. We're going to be back at the fire pit and finish it up in a few minutes. But I want to bring a couple pointers out to you. The little spring that you just looked at is the spring that borders the dig site. This is one of the feeder streams that went into the main river, the Tuscarawas River. And I'm bringing this up because a lot of you are just kind of stymied. Where do I go looking for sites? Find your little feeder streams that are going into your travel lane main streams. The prehistoric people find them, and I'll tell you how I did. I was trout fishing up in Michigan on one of the main rivers, and in the mornings when it was very early, we'd get up, we'd look up the river, and you see little fog areas, and that's where the springs were feeding into the main course river. Well, they needed to drink water. A friend of mine is a head professor. He's in charge of the pathology department for the veterinary school at Ohio State University. And Mike told me that the streams back then were not drinkable. The rivers were full of feces from the elk and other animals. And so they needed water like you and I, and they would look for these instant, fresh, clean water areas. So find those, follow them up, and see if you can find the little village sites. So here's a couple quickies. I jotted them down. Always, when you're going to go work, especially if you're working close to soil or you're on a dig site, no shaving the day before or the day of. Women, don't shave your legs. I'll just say no shaving. That's probably the safest way to leave it, because little nicks and cuts have a way of infections and bacteria and stuff getting in them. And then after you're done, scrub, wash, go home. Done. Now I'm going to go out in the yard and work for a while. No, as soon as you get home, scrub up, clean up right away. The other thing that you might consider is tetanus or tetanus shots if you're working in the soil constantly. So those are just some reminders. And then other stuff, like anytime you go into the woods, don't wear colognes or perfumes. Those draw bugs, mosquitoes. Ticks, they pretty much are on the ground. If you use your DEET and spray your socks and your shoes, that should take care of most of the problem. I want to mention yellow jackets. We're in that time of the year here in Ohio where yellow jackets are switching over from fruits and woodland veggies to flesh. So be aware of that. If you have a yellow jacket site near where you're working, mark it. And I mean put a red cone up or something. If you don't knock them out, make sure you stay away from it. Don't make a mistake. And then this is just kind of a fun afterthought. And it's my reminder to always spray my trowels and to spray my walking sticks when I'm going through fields. So if I abandon one, I can get down and look, and I'll find where they are real quick. So this is just a whole bunch of warm-up stuff to get ready to go back to finish our dig site. You already saw some of the stuff. You're going to see the end of the fire pit today. So follow along. We're going to head up the hill and get right back on the site. Oh boy, it's good to be back. The little creek that we were beside is really a tiny stream, and it's one of the immediate adjacent boundaries to the dig site. This is literally a finger that points out to where the old river used to be, and hence they could come off the main river up the little stream to get their drinking water. The little stream on the other side, they were digging clay for their pottery. So we're back, we have uncovered it. Let me give you an overview of what's taken place since we were together the last time. I left the fire pit alone over here off to my left because I wanted to save that for my crew. You know, they've been hardworking. They've been with me the whole time. And that looks like it's going to have a few materials. So I saved it for them. They're here today and they'll get in it. And if you look on the top bank over there, you see aftermath of what once was, now is. What once was a black rat snake is now a shed or molted skin of a black rat snake, which is hilarious because if you look right here to your left, there's remnants of a mouse nest. Now, who got who first? Did they build and then the snake came, or did they, who knows? So as we look at the site, we've got a fire pit right here in front of us. This is what you saw the last time we were here. We were digging it. We're going to take that little terrace off and then we're going to start right into the pit. If you come this direction, this is where I was filling time until I could get my crew back. And I discovered as I moved in and cleaned the path of another fire pit just popped out of nowhere. And it's kind of long, it's kind of lengthy and big right there. And then moving back up here, looking at my soil in the corner, it is a huge, rich, deep organic color, minimal charcoal, suspicious of possibly a garbage pit, don't know. But this whole area was worked since the last time you were with us. Today, this little terrace is going to go because it yielded a bunch of pottery. I talked to you about a guy named Dr. Redmond from the Cleveland Museum of History up there. And he talked about the keyhole people and kind of a wash of material as they were walking around and kicking the debutage, the pottery. So you may have a fire pit, but you have stuff all over the place. And over here, what we found was that probably 90% of all the pottery, and it was a bunch, was the size of your little fingernail or smaller. And that's very remnant of people walking around, stepping on stuff, kicking it around. And you're going to see the treasure that came out of there. Where you least suspect it, things are always happening on a dig site. I'll give you a clue. Something to do with perhaps a gorget. So we'll get to that shortly. We're going to take a short break. We're going to get set up and we're going to start digging. So stay by your computer. Okay, we were trying to get our horizontal plane back, square up our corners, but take a little bit closer look at this fire pit. And as we cleaned it, you can see that this fire pit runs clear over down into this area over here, comes clear up into this area, and it goes deeper. But what's of interest, look at this, folks, right here. What do you see? Can you see the transition of the soil color from this to this? And then in here, I have charcoal. So it's possible that we have two different fire pits, two different cultures, two different time periods. I doubt that the same people that built this same fire pit put another pit right beside it. There's been no evidence of that on this site. So now we've got our horizontal. We discovered another fire pit in the process of cleaning this one off. And we're going to take a break and then we will start back. We're going to sift a little bit and show you what we found. Okay, so we started sifting that two terrace fire pit. Big area with the fire pit, and there was a little chunk of ground that hadn't been removed. We took that out, brought everything over here. We're going to sift that. We're going to see what we got. Now here's our first sifter, so come on over. I'm seeing some things that are starting to show, and I'll sift real quickly. In particular, I see this large flake. My experience on sites like this is the large flakes were often used as miniature tools of sorts. So we will look at him later. And okay, oh yay! This is a shard of pottery. It's a beauty. I'll get him all washed off before we come back and look at some of this stuff. Okay, so let me finish this. See if we have anybody else hiding in here. Oh, and just what I expect. And there'll be little retouched chips of flint. Here's one. Here's one. Here's one. And here's one. Little tiny retouched sharpening chips. So this larger flake, A nice sized piece of pottery. All right. Now I'm going to be taking a lot of breaks because I want to include you in these sifting. So from time to time, and it may be jumpy, it may be us just going back and forth, but I really want you to be a part of this process as this fire pit opens. And again, you never know what's popping up when, so just be prepared for a lot of stop and starts, okay? That happens in older age. Alrighty, it's getting warm. I'm going to be flipping from a ball cap to a do-rag. And the reason for that is even with a good ball cap, the sweat's still going to come down and get in your face and your eyes. But with do-rags, for me, it keeps the sweat out of my eyes. I'm not trying to be a 60s hippie, but I am. But I'm trying to just keep the sweat out of my eyes. Now, here we are. We finished that little tiny terrace. We got it all sifted. And we'll start in on the main dig site. But look what came out of that. These sherds of pottery, a couple biggies, a couple little guys, piece of charcoal, and a couple interesting pieces of flint. Now, there were several little micro flakes or debitage, but these are bigger. We'll look them over. So there you are, folks, and we're going to work into the pit now. So we made the decision to remove this little terrace that was right back here, and simply because we had some nice shards of pottery that were in it. They, however, could be the result of what's up in this main fire pit right here. Don't know yet. I'm seeing discoloration of the soil. Comes clear out like this. So this fire pit had an impact clear out here and over here. So again, we removed it. We got it squared up. We're going to sift, and our next move will be to take this out. So see you in a minute. All right, just to keep you actively involved with us, back and forth from the sifters back to the fire pit, we're starting to move down into it. And I want you to look at the impact of this charcoal that's had on the fire pit. Now, if this were 10,000 years old, there'd be no charcoal. So as we come forward in time, at some point, the charcoal is semi-preserved, very preserved, and the soils are very blackened. And just because of this, I'm guessing we're going to come forward in time, like maybe 1000 BC to maybe 500 AD. But I need diagnostic material to come out of here. Haven't got any yet. But we just took our first scoop off. We're going to remove this, go down a little bit, and we'll sift again. See you in a minute. So we're going down enough of a layer at a time so that we should be able to pull out any pottery that's in here. As I look into the matrix, I see things that are anomalies like this, and they could just be something that decomposed differently, burn up differently. I don't know. What we are experiencing right now is that the sand immediately adjacent to this fire pit is like going through concrete, where the actual fire pit material itself is very soft and the shovel just slides right through it. So we're working our way down. We're going to continue to take this thing out. Stay with us, and hopefully we'll have some goodies to share with you. All right. It's been a long day. You know what? And just like a kid, knows all the tricks. I mean, he's ready for this 2024 Olympics. And you invite your friends in. Okay, Johnny, show him what you can do. And he just sits there and nothing happens. Well, that's just how it goes. So what we're going to do is just close it. We'll show you how things progressed to today. Let's start with this. Come on up. Let's look right here. This was a layer about 4 inches thick that was above that very black fire pit that you saw that we got into today. This one was above it and a little bit behind it. And when you were watching, you saw me. I had the edge of the pottery right here, and we dug her out. We said, yep, we got probably a piece of hopewell right here. And then in the process of sifting, there was a lot more debitage that came out, pottery. Some was extremely thick. And traditionally, it's pretty well thought that the Adena storage pots were really thick like this. And we have found many of these on this site. Okay, and then this was a rim shard that came out with this. And I used Elmer glue on it, which is a perfect glue. It works wonderfully. This is a pretty exciting day. And then while I was working on the pit, one of the crew members yelled, "Hey, look what just came out of the same place as this." And it's a rim of steatite pottery. And I got looking at this thing and I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to look at the tray from last fall. And last fall, we found a piece of steatite rim. And it may or may not be from the same rim. I don't know that. But the cool thing is that we're finding it, and we're finding a lot of it on this site. So then I went back the next day. Oh, Jesus. I went back the next day, dug a little bit more. Some of the larger flint chips that came out, I've not looked at these for micro tools yet. A couple tips of points right here. More pottery, more larger flakes. Here's one that they were working on and they couldn't remove this and ended up in a fire pit. But the big surprise was this. Right now you look at it and you say, hey, I got some of those in my fishbowl, But this is actually a river pebble that simply does not belong up here. And that's why we picked it up. We got to look at them. We noticed there's some geometry right here that this edge has been. A lot of times it's helpful when you're trying to photograph this stuff. If you spray it, the sheen gets any dirt off and it shows up much better on the camera. Still looking at what was going to be a gorget. And traditionally, if you start looking at some of your slate books, you'll see that these were made out of this hard granite material with 2 holes here. We've got our geometry where they started squaring off this side right here. And we can feel a concavity where they were beginning to, oh man, I can even see it right here where they were honing it like that. Point is, you got to slow down and look at everything that's coming out of your sifter. This is a hard stone gorget, maybe in the preform stage, not quite there yet. A lot of the pottery that came out, and then let's look at today. Today, we actually got into the black area. We wanted to finish that up. We wanted to finish up the area yesterday that was above it and behind it, so we finished that up. We finished the black area, which turned out to be a black area. Black area. And then we went to the right where I was a couple days ago, where that preform gorget came from. And so here's just some things that came out. You can see more of the potsherds. This has really, really been stained by charcoal right here. Here's some charcoal, a couple more pottery pieces. This, we believe, is cannel coal. Just some flakes that came out with this. We moved and we were digging in another area by those fire pits. Another big piece of pottery. Probably from the same pot. It looks the temporary, everything looks similar right here. And just some of the flakes, these have been fired. They came out. So a lot of work, a lot of hours. And the truth of this is this, and you folks have watched so many YouTube videos of people out in fields. It's like, hey, here's a piece, here's a piece, here's a broke, here's a piece. But what they're not saying is there's 3 hours in between this piece, or 2 hours between these 2 pieces. And what you've done is you've spent a day with us on a dig site in East Central Ohio, looking at one definite feature, one beautiful blackened area. We don't have an explanation for it. It did not have any fire-cracked rocks in it. Above and beyond it, we found some more pottery in that. We're thinking maybe a fire pit beside and on top of it. Could have been 500 years difference of time. No diagnostic material to help us. And then when you look at that black fire pit to the right, you saw that whole new area that I dug out. And that's where that beautiful hard stone gorget came from. So, surprise. Thanks for joining us today on another adventure with Archaeology 101.